Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking part of your Saturday to join us. I'm Nadine, co-founder of the Art Spread, and I have co-founder Rowan Ida Diaz with me too.
Hi everyone, I'm Rowan, and I'm so glad to be doing these again with all of you. We've really missed having our workshop, so thanks again for joining us today.
And for those of you who haven't been to our events or we haven't had them in a while, so just a reminder to speak slowly if you are talking, because we are recording everything with the caption option so that you can read and follow along as well. We have our board members in attendance, so if you guys can just wave quickly. Thank you very much.
And just to reiterate our mission statement for those of you who may not know, we are a nonprofit based in Santa Ana and Detroit. We are dedicated to leading artists with adversity to success and spreading empathy through art.
And quick announcements before we get started. So first and foremost, we had our very first in-person exhibition in May of this year. It was hosted at Chapter 1, and we want to thank them so much for being as great as they were with their space. We are also so proud of our artists for showing off their work. It was beautiful to serve the community of Santa Ana, sell pieces of art, and talk about mental health awareness and bettering yourself through art. So thank you so much for our speakers, artists, patrons, and guests. We also have a few more events this year. Our next in-person exhibition is November 12th. So mark your calendars. Location, details, and time will be released shortly. Next month in August, we have our IG Live with our featured artist, JD. So it's just very informal. Hop on IG. You'll see how he paints and what we can paint together. And then in September 17th, we're having our next virtual event on social anxiety, especially with going back to school and coming back in person too. So you'll see how art can help you with techniques on that. Stay up to date through our newsletter. Just subscribe on our website. It's theartspread.org. And with that, I'll hand it to Rowan.
Thank you, Nadine. So we'd like to know a little bit more about National Minority Mental Health Awareness and what brings this topic to us here today. So Nadine, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Of course. So for those of you who don't know, July is National Minority Mental Health Awareness. It is a mouthful today, but the reason we recognize and celebrate it is to focus on unique struggles that underrepresented groups face regarding mental illness in the United States, and also bridging the gap between minority and majority communities by creating a more empathetic and understanding culture and broadening perspective. That way we have a more thorough, better understanding of why someone else experiences an issue we may not, and how we can help other communities. So just focusing on this awareness for July, it was recognized in 2008 by Congress after author B.B. Moore Campbell passed away in 2008. Our government wanted to recognize her. And what she did was she started the National Mental Health, National Alliance on Mental Illness in Inglewood. So she was able to bring a community and also a space for a predominantly Black neighborhood to have a safe space to talk about mental illness. NAMI for short is really, really big. If you haven't checked them out, definitely do. They're a fantastic organization that helps a lot of different communities, including majority communities, even police officers, have a better understanding of mental illness, especially those in minority communities, how it impacts them and how we can better approach and cope with those issues. So for those of you who don't know B.B. Moore Campbell, she was an author and wrote very influential novels. Her work has been featured in the Washington Post and the New York Times. Read about her. She's really fantastic, very influential. And her work obviously isn't forgotten because of how Congress wants to recognize it. So during our workshop, you're going to hear more also about Frida Kahlo, a Mexican painter who embraced her mental health issues through her work, and poet and novelist Maya Angelou. So, what we want you to take away from this workshop is techniques on how to cope with mental health issues that you may face or that your community faces in creating a better understanding. That way, you can take these skills and tools and use it for your community to strengthen it, and better yourself. So, hopefully, you get that from this event. And again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Nadine. That was really beautifully said.
Thank you.
So for this part of the workshop, we'll get into the template, and I want to show you all the template we have today. So I've started mine already, but we have this available in black and white in our shop page, which is theartspread.org/shop. And a little bit about the meaning behind the template. It is a flower crown, and this is Frida's iconic flower crown. So to Frida, this symbolizes her heritage, femininity, and fertility, which is something that she really longed for. And also, July is Frida's birthday month. So let's raise a glass and cheers to Frida's 115th birthday. Cheers. Thank you, Nadine. Okay, so before we begin diving into the template, and if you have already, that's great. I'll go over some of the things that I'll be making with today. Usually I use watercolor, but I'm switching it up. So we're using pastels today, and I've got Faber-Castell pastels. I have soft pastels as well as oil pastels. These are very accessible through big box stores, art supply stores like Michael's, Hobby Lobby, or Amazon, and you can get different ranges. So you can get something that's really affordable, $7 up to $30, depending on the level of what you're going for and how many pieces you'd want. So I'm starting out with these. These are great for beginners. And a couple of the tools that I have are very simple tools. Piece of paper. So this is a scrap piece of paper, and blending tools. Typically, I just use my fingers, but we do have blending tools. This is a large one, and this is a smaller one. And for one of the techniques I used a pen as well. So we have that handy, and of course the pastels. So for this part of the workshop, actually, if we could pin my screen, which is Rowan Ita Diaz, it's got my name on there, you'll be able to see more of what I've got in front of me. So I hope you can all get there. So I've got this piece of paper in front of me, and it's a sheet showing the differences between oil pastels and soft pastels. And a couple of ways that I did these are very simple techniques that we can all do to start with. So for oil pastels, you do want to spread the paint in one direction because it is very streaky. So if you go in different directions, you will see the lines. And that's okay if you're going for that effect, but typically you want to move it in one direction like that. And what I've done is blend it with white. So I have here a purple and I have a blue, and I've blended with white on top of them. And you can see that that dilutes the color and creates a softer effect. And here I have the blue and purple blending into each other. And over on this side, it's blue and purple blended in together with white as well. So oil pastels, blending with white is probably best. And with soft pastels, it's a little bit different. With soft pastels, you can move the pastel around in any direction and blend it very easily and seamlessly with just your finger. Or like I said, you can use a blending tool. So I just like to get a little bit messy myself and use my finger for that. So you can see I've got the purple and how it's blended here. It looks very airbrushed and blurred. Same with the blue. And again, when you're mixing colors, you can just blend right into each other using your finger or that blending tool without having to use a white pastel. Another technique that I think oils do best is the sgraffito effect. So here I just laid down some oil in one direction, and then I used something sharp, just like a pen cap will do, or a skewer, and I just wrote, the letters high, the word high. And you can see how vivid it is in these pieces here. And you can do other things like markings or hearts, whatever you wish to do. It really picks up the oil and reveals more of the paper underneath. So that's really nice. And this is the sgraffito effect. With soft pastels, you notice that doesn't really happen very successfully. So it doesn't pick up as easily or smoothly. And you can hardly see that. So if you compare this to this, oils definitely do a better job at that. Now with detailing, you can use oil to draw lines. They're a little bit looser. You can see there's a lot more of the paper showing through, but it is also a lot more controlled. And detailing with soft pastels it does give a more pigmented effect, but it can get very messy. And you can see here that it can just spread and spread uncontrollably. And there are ways that you can varnish in between. But typically, when it comes to detailing, I love to use oils. And when it comes to spreading out a lot of paint, I like to use pastels and then blend it around that way. And the reason for this scrap piece of paper is when you are using the white, you can see there's a lot of residue left over from the previous color. So I just like to move it around the page and make sure that it comes off, which it does pretty easily. So I know that was kind of a lot thrown at you all, but that's just a very quick rundown for pastels. Another thing that I really appreciate about them is that you can tell the difference between them through your sense of touch, which is really nice. Soft pastels are very chalky and velvety and fragile in your hand, and oil pastels are a lot more rigid and waxy and sticky. So if for any reason you need to use your sense of touch, you can do that and notice the difference between the two mediums. And what we're doing today is we are combining our visual aid, which is the Frida crown, and this is our visual art. Like I said, I've already begun combining oils and soft pastels, and we want to merge this with literature, which is another form of artwork. And a couple of ways we can do that is through Words of Wisdom by Maya Angelou herself. And I have 3 quotes that you guys can use today. If you'd like, there are endless quotes out there. Maya has tons more of really powerful words of wisdom, but I will share the quotes that we have today. And Nadine has also put them in the chat for you. So the first one is, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. And this is really important for artists because a lot of artists use art as self-expression, and maybe this is a different form of art, but either way, you're using self-expression, and it's a way to get this story out of you so that it's not a burden that you're holding on to yourself. So I really resonate with that one. Number 2 is, I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. And this one's really important as well because we do understand that trauma and different experiences can change our lives. It can change who we become or what we think, but that does not mean that we lose any value or that we are worth any less. And number 3, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And this is a really beautiful quote and really inspires us as an organization because we do want to spread empathy. And I think this quote wraps it up really well as telling you, your impact on people's lives has a lasting impression on the way that they feel, even if they can't remember the exact words you used or the actions you made, but they can remember you and your essence in their lives. I think we have something in the chat. No? Okay. So thank you. So another way that you can use these. So personally for me, I think I would hang it up, maybe put it in my bathroom as a nice morning reminder. But you can definitely frame this, put it in your studio. You can gift it to someone. And, a couple ways you can write the text is inside of the crown. If there's a longer text, maybe you can write it around the florals itself, which would be really nice. Or you can write it in a straight line. Obviously, however you see fit is best. These are just suggestions, but definitely show us what you've made and tell us what you're creating with. And towards the end of the workshop, I'd love to see everyone's progress. So if anyone wants to share their tools or their template, definitely go ahead.
So I'm using watercolor. It's probably the easiest for me because I'm not too advanced in art yet.
Nice.
So far, this is what it looks like.
That's so beautiful. Is that like a shimmer, like a pearlescent watercolor?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so pretty.
And
wow,
then
you really controlled the watercolor too. That's very nice.
Thank you. I've learned a lot from you, Rowan.
Oh,
so.
yay.
And then the quote I chose was, "I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it." I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, it's super powerful. So again, if anyone would like to show theirs off, now is the time to do so. If not, we definitely would love to see more. Oh, we got Giovanna. Let's see. That is beautiful. And what are you making with?
I'm using the color pencils I won from your last activity.
Oh, nice. Awesome. I'm so glad they came in handy.
Yes.
That's so great. Thank you. All right.
So I couldn't wait till end. I made this.
Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you. It has been so long since I used watercolor. So I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and give it a try. So yeah,
beautiful.
I like it. I ended up really liking it.
And Miriam, are you using regular paper or watercolor paper?
No, I use regular paper.
Nice.
But now that it turned out the way it was beyond my expectation that how I still remember how to do watercolor. So I think I'm going to do it I'm going to print it on a watercolor paper and just do something that I can, frame it, like you said, or give it as a gift.
And I love that you use regular paper because it does show that, you can use whatever you have handy and just make something beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So this is perfect timing. Miriam is actually our next guest speaker. So a little bit about Miriam. She is our supporting artist, and we're so proud of all that she does. Like the woman we'll be talking about, Miriam is a powerful female artist that you should know. So definitely take the time to get to know her through our artist page. She was born and raised in Iran, but she graduated with her bachelor's degree in business management at Cal State University in Long Beach. And she currently resides in Orange County. So she's near a lot of you, actually. Miriam is a single mother with a busy career in banking, but she still manages to make time for her art. And we're so glad that she does because her work is so beautiful and finely crafted. And she also makes collages that celebrate Frida Kahlo. So she was a perfect person to ask to speak on Frida and her impact on national minority mental health awareness. So with that, Miriam, I give it to you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, everyone. Yeah, you guys need to stop me because I can go on talking about her and what I feel forever. Yeah. Thank you again. Yeah. Well, like we all know about Frida and her life, how she lived her life. So, like consciously. She didn't apologize for her beliefs. She didn't apologize for what she wanted to say. She was brave. And even though she suffered through so many ailments since the young age of six, being diagnosed with polio, then being bullied by all the kids in school and neighborhood, and then having that horrible bus accident that left almost all of her bones broken at the age of 18. But that didn't stop her because she knew if she was to give in to all of that pain, we're lucky that she spent the whole year in bed getting recuperated, picking up painting and continue on with what was inside of her, right? To just flourish more and more. One of her favorite quotes that I come back to every so often, and I have it written, on a note card, and I have it in my room. It says, "Do not build a wall around your own suffering. It may devour you from inside."
That's beautiful.
And I feel this is so important, that sometimes we feel like we're trying to keep ourselves safe, but by not being exposed to what's out there. But this wall can really end up hurting us because we're feeling so disconnected and without even knowing it. Yeah.
That's really great, Miriam. And can you tell us a little bit about why you feel so connected to Frida and why she inspires you so much? Oh, that's the question that we have in our chat, actually.
I feel so connected because, being a woman, have lived an immigrant life, being bullied myself, and suffered a lot through various rocks that have been thrown at me over the period of life. That's because when I read about Frida, when I see her work, she lived that life, from whether being unaccepted by her family, whether being, when she came to the United States because of her husband, but wasn't received as well because at that time she wasn't a great artist. But she lived through that. She put up with it. And then she didn't lose hope. She didn't apologize for who she was. So I try to remember all of the positive attitude that she carried on with herself all her life, because you can't please everybody. You can't explain yourself to everybody. When you stand up for yourself and just say, hey, this is who I am. And not in a very, in a positive way, I should say. Not being in an obnoxious way, this is who I am, deal with it. But just put all of that energy into the work that you do, just like she did with her work. Like everything she created was the reality of her life, whether good or bad, dark or light, sad or joy. She was able to create that and bring it out to life through her paintings.
And Miriam, I want to talk specifically about, it looks like we have a question that says, so you have a piece in our shop with Frida Kahlo, and it's called Always Sunny in My Head. So if you can tell us what inspired that.
Well, everything that I create has something to do with the emotions and everything that I'm feeling at the time, right? So that's how the idea comes to me. So that was the time that I felt like I'm putting on a mask every day I go to work or every day I show up for life. Everybody thinks I have that sunny and happy, face when I go in, but really nobody knows what's going on in my head. So that's how that came about. That's how that's why it led me to create that. I actually have another work that I did during the past couple of months that we've been going through all of the ups and downs with the political situation that we're in, all of what has been taking away from the women, which I'm calling it Broken. And I have it right behind me. I don't know if you guys have it. That's again, it's inspired by a lot of obviously Frida. The background is notes from her diary. So I can bring it down and show it to you guys if you'd like to see it.
Yeah,
sure.
Look at Maria.
Yes.
Show us all the pieces. Where do you also have also Sunny in My Head so that people can see that one too?
I don't have it with me, but this is the latest.
That's stunning. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think
that is precious.
What's so interesting too is that Frida wasn't able to have children, so that's something that was taken from her because of the accident. So you can feel that longing through her art and through her message.
Yeah. Hence the birth with
Yeah,
the eggs.
that's
The
beautiful.
child that child had never, even though she was pregnant once, but she wasn't able to keep the child because of all of that. So, which was unfortunate. That's what she longed for all her life. But then again, it goes to show you that we can all wish for everything that we want in life, but sometimes life gives you better gifts that you don't know at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to end this part. Miriam, that was really nice. Thank you. And for those of you who don't know her work, I've put all of the links of her work in the chat. Definitely check it out. I've purchased a piece and it's definitely the centerpiece of the wall. So very, very good job. We're very proud of you, Miriam.
Thank you so much. I'm so proud to be part of this family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I will introduce our next guest speaker. Her name is Alexandra Houston. Her and I met at a business mixer just a few weeks ago, and she's our newest committee member. Alex went to the University of Cape Town in South Africa, so she's traveled the world. She has interacted with a lot of different cultures, which is why we felt that talking about Maya Angelou would be perfect for her. She has a Bachelor of Social Science in Sociology, International Relations, and Gender Studies. She is an incredible speaker, and with that, I will hand it to Alex.
Hi, thanks for the lovely introduction. So I'm going to be just talking a bit about Maya Angelou and kind of giving a brief kind of background on her story because it is so essential to, how she became the person she is known for today. And before I start, I did want to give a brief trigger warning that I will be touching on themes such as sexual assault. So I just wanted to put that out there before I start. But, we will be focusing on Maya Angelou as a poet, but I think it's also important to note that she was also known as an award-winning author, a civil rights activist, a college professor, and a screenwriter. As a civil rights activist, she worked with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, and to this day, she remains known as one of the most influential women of her time. You can see her poetry was often informed by her life work, and this personal connection definitely made her poems profound and powerful. In her most famous book, which is titled I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, she details her own life experiences of growing up in America during segregation and Jim Crow laws. And she also describes how she was sexually assaulted by her mother's boyfriend when she was 7 years old. At the time, Angelou told her family what had happened, and he was actually sent to jail. However, he was released after only 1 day. Several days later, he was found dead or murdered. And Maya Angelou thought that her voice and words had killed him and felt responsible for his death. And so she actually stopped talking out of fear that her voice could kill anyone. And this is called selective mutism. It's an anxiety disorder that causes a child to not speak due to physical or psychological trauma that they endured. And in the 5-year span that she experienced this, her listening, her observing and memorizing skills improved, and her love of books really expanded during this time. Unfortunately, her family chose to never speak of the incident again, so Angelou did not receive the support and counseling that she needed during those 5 years that she remained mute. It was actually one of her teachers, Miss Flowers, who helped her find the courage to speak again through poetry. So Miss Flowers challenged her to read poetry aloud, and in doing so, emphasized the importance of the spoken word and explained the nature of and the importance of education, and instilled in her a love of poetry. So you can see in her poetry that in addition to examining her own individual experience, her poems respond to matters like race and sex on a larger social and also physiological scale. And I just wanted to read a short excerpt from one of her most famous poems titled Still I Rise. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air, I'll rise. So Still I Rise is a poem about the adversity racism that she faced and that many other African American individuals throughout history face. And in this inspiring piece, she expresses her defiance, but she also expresses her faith that others who face obstacles shall overcome and triumph. And when speaking about this poem, I found a quote that she said, all my work is meant to say, you may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, the encounter may be the very experience which creates the vitality and the power to endure. So I thought that was very powerful. And, you know, it's clear that she experienced her own challenges in regard to mental health, and she used poetry as a way to cope with that. Often trauma or living with disability can cause people to develop exceptional innovation, creativity, and coping skills, and it's clear that she had those skills. Her work also sheds light on the unique struggles that underrepresented groups face and the trauma caused by racism, which can have a direct impact on mental health. And her experience with select mutism also sheds light on the issues around lack of resources and support that minority groups often face. And I did have a quote I wanted to end with, but we did already mention the quote, but I might as well mention it again because it is a great quote. And I feel like it really shows how she expressed herself through her art, which is poetry. She said, there is no greater agony than bearing the untold story inside you. So yeah, I think that's a great quote.
Thank you, Alex. That gave me chills. That was really interesting to hear. I feel like Frida and Maya have very similar experiences in very different ways, but they express themselves through creativity and they do it in an exceptional way. I'm curious to know, are you and our other people, do you feel more creative through visual art or more towards literature like journaling or reading? So if you can put in the chat or go ahead and just give it a shout now. I'm seeing in the chat literature for Nadine, literature for Marina, both. Thank you. Alex, how about you?
I would definitely have to say both for me. I think they both kind of serve different but similar purposes, but they can have different feelings expressed through both. So I think both for sure.
I'm definitely more of the visual. I'm seeing visual in the chat, both. So mostly we're seeing both. Miriam, I can definitely tell both because you do combine a lot of your visual art with literature in your work. So that's a really beautiful manifestation of that. Thank you all. And continue to, feel free to chat as well in the chat box.
Thank you, Alex. As I said, I promised you guys a great guest speaker, and she did a fantastic job. Thank you, Alex. And with that, I want to introduce more fantastic guest speakers. So I'll hand it to our resident therapist, Marina Braff, to introduce the next two fantastic speakers.
Thanks, Nadine. And yes, I just have to say before I introduce our fabulous other speakers that Miriam and Alex, I loved what you guys had to say and lots of chills going on. So this is great and it's going to get better. Yay. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you two of my closest friends, Giovanna Sanguinetti and Monica Rivera. So I'm going to breeze through their introductions really quick just so we have time to go over the questions and discussion points that we've prepared. So Giovanna Sanguinetti is passionate about social justice and destigmatizing mental health. Her focus is in empowering youth to discover strength while boosting their protective factors. During the summer of 2020, she led a team in developing You, which is an interactive mobile application that makes mental health support accessible virtually. You-And's curriculum is currently being translated into Spanish and Vietnamese. Giovanna holds an interdisciplinary degree focusing on health science and behavioral health, a master's in medical anthropology, and began her doctorate in health science in January 2022. But most importantly, Giovanna is a mom to Gio, Italo, Santi, and the wife to her high school sweetheart. She loves art, foreign films, traveling, and learning Portuguese. And then we have Monica. She was born and raised in Puerto Rico and relocated to California in 2017. She holds a master's in social work and a perinatal mental health certification through PSI. Monica has 8+ years of experience as a social worker and recently found her true passion, which is birth work. So this kind of ties into what we were talking about with Frida. She has always been a rebel against common conceptions of how women should exist in this world. Through social work, she's been able to understand the complexities of being human and the constructs that mold us. Through birth work, she has found the power to challenge all of it. She's currently working towards her LCSW and is also developing her own perinatal service program to support future parents. So, welcome. Thanks for joining us. So my first question, Monica, in your experience working with families in Puerto Rico and the US, have you noticed any cultural differences in the perception of mental health?
Okay, sorry, I was having trouble with the mute button. First of all, thank you so much for having us here. It's really exciting to be here and being surrounded virtually by all of you. It's a great energy in here. I think that the first thing that I need to say is that I want to make the disclaimer that anything that I say is based on my own set of experiences, and I have no intent of like just generalizing the experience of all minorities out there. But to answer the question in short, yes and no. I have noted that the taboo is basically the same here and what I experienced in Puerto Rico. It's like that, see no evil, speak no evil, better not talk about it. And if we don't acknowledge it, it's not there. There's a lot of shame attached to speaking about mental health issues in at least the communities that I have been able to work with. I would have thought once I started working here that it would be a little bit different, but it's again the element of shame is just like very, very present, and this is something that I have noticed in my work both with families in very diverse with very diverse cultural backgrounds. That being like Latinx families, Asian families. I've worked with Indian families in the past, Middle Eastern, white, and it's the manifestations of how that shame looks like might be very different and vary, but it's pretty much the first barrier that we always have to address when I go into support. If I have to point out like one main difference that I have noticed in my experience as a mental health therapist here in Puerto Rico is that it's been mostly related to the availability of treatment and support. Once a person is ready to seek treatment, it's a little bit easier to find options here than what it is in Puerto Rico. So generally speaking, it's like you will once you find a service, it's like it can take you months and months of just like actually getting someone to really see you versus here where there's a little bit more variety and it's a little bit better in terms of accessing, at least from what I saw there.
Awesome. And to build off of that, Gio, why do you think there's this imbalance of not only the accessibility, but the mental health professionals in minority communities versus Caucasian communities?
So I would say that it's not necessarily a lack of minority professionals, but an imbalance in the minority professionals servicing the communities that they reflect. So statistically, minorities are met with more barriers during their career paths. There are real systemic obstacles that kind of limit, right? Most of them are working during grad school. It takes them longer to get through it. They don't have the luxury of just going straight through grad school. It takes them longer to maybe get their hours completed. So the first sign of a job, they take it. And that might actually be removing them from the community that they wish to service. And that they're reflective of them. The second thing I would note is really the availability of clinicians that take Medicaid versus private insurance. That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. So, Monica, what is your take on the availability of mental health resources for Hispanic and Latinx communities?
Again, based on like the experience I've had so far during my 5 years working here with Latinx families, I gotta say, so Southern California, it's its own little set of thing. I think we have here a very big diversity of people, so there is a little bit more abundance of services available for the community. Nevertheless, I do have to say that the real issue comes down to visibility and access to those services. So it's not that they don't exist, it's like, how are people really knowing about them? Once they know about them, do they know how to navigate the system in order to access? I think that's where the real issue comes from. And as I was talking like before, about the shame that comes attached to having these conversations. Oftentimes what happens is that a person is also like, let's say they were able to overcome the barrier of like the shame attached to thinking, okay, I do need support with whatever I'm going through. And then they go out there and look for support. Let's say they were able to find the support. And then they find themselves being seen by providers that don't necessarily relate to their lived experiences. And then that can hurt the motivation to continue with treatment, which I think correlates with what Gio was saying in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to expand on that. So finding a provider or accepting that you need services or help, having insurance, jumping through the hoops and hurdles of finding a provider. That's just one piece. The next piece is the real possibility of being paired with a practitioner that lacks the cultural awareness and knowledge that you need to be properly supported. So minorities were often misunderstood and were dismissed due to cultural bias, lack of empathy for our unique history and experiences, and really sadly, we're often labeled difficult and troublesome. So this could lead to, misdiagnosis. It leaves the client dissatisfied. Then they think, well, if I tried it, it didn't work out. I wasn't welcome. They don't understand me. And worse, it perpetuates trauma. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that there were a lot, I think that's kind of what you were alluding to earlier when you talked about the barriers. And I think it's all of those. It's the awareness of where to get the resources, finding the resources, and then whether or not those resources, those providers are culturally competent. And I think sadly, and I say this as a professor in grad school, as much as cultural competency is placed as an emphasis in curriculum, it's like a checkbox that schools are trying to do, but I don't think therapists are really understanding what that looks like. And especially when working with minority communities, they don't understand how to approach it and how to be humble enough on whether or not to say like, hey, I'm not skilled enough to work with this client. They just try to like show up even if they're not, and ultimately, like the two of you are saying, that can cause additional trauma and leave a really bad taste in their mouth for them wanting to get further support from other therapists.
Exactly.
Right, and that's why I mentioned previously that it's a systemic issue, right?
Yeah.
If there was some balance in terms of how, people of color, clinicians of color go through schooling, and then there's a plethora of, opportunities in community of colors, they're reflective of that community. And then the participant might feel more welcomed, and understood and more comfortable, maybe disclosing things that we know are very personal to our culture, but we don't want to be judged, So at the end of the day, what it is a systemic issue.
Yeah. And I know that the two of you know this. You probably experienced it too. And it's one of those situations and topics that's really important to discuss and hard at the same time, because there is no easy solution, because you're trying to change the entire system. So I'm glad that we're at least able to have this conversation and to start talking about it. I think this is kind of where movement and change really happens. So I appreciate that. To move along in our discussion and to bring this back to art, I did want to ask you, Monica, do you believe that art is an expressive tool in Puerto Rico that's used to bring awareness to the importance of mental health?
100%. Yes.
Tell me more.
I think that, in fact, like, not only at a micro level, as in like people use this as a way of coping with their own unique situations. I think that as a Puerto Rican culture, people as a whole, this is how we cope in moments of crisis, which sadly has become our new normal. I like a few examples that I can think about are like through our dance and our music and our entire folklore. And something that in conversation with Giovanna the other day, we thinking about this question, this topic, we were like, even like graffiti, like you go driving by any major street in Puerto Rico and you will see a lot of graffiti, and it's mostly used as a means to protest. Most of the messages that you're going to be seeing out there are expressing the discontent that the people are experiencing what's happening in the island. And the beauty of that is that whoever drives by that major street that might be going through the same hurdles and burnout that that the person that wrote like through their graffiti is suddenly going to feel less alone. It's suddenly going to be like, oh my God, like that person's also going through what I'm going through, you know, and they don't even have to know each other or see each other or speak ever. And it's a way to sort of like put that out there and just like being a little bit more accessible. And I also wanted to talk about bomba. Most of you are probably not going to know this, but like bomba is a Afro-Puerto Rican music / dance / expression / community gathering event. It's pretty much everything. It had its beginnings in the with our enslaved ancestors, and it's one of our main cultural staples. Bomba's practiced in what we call batey, which is like people gather in a circle, and then you have like the drummers on this side, and then the rest of the public on this side, and it's, as I said, with drums and you have like one dancer coming out at a time, and there's like this dialogue between whoever's dancing and the main drummer, where the dancer basically just creates the rhythm for the drummer to play. And it was used as a way of, like, as I said, community gathering. Basically, slaves will go hiding to some of the I was gonna say cuevas in Spanish, the caves, after a very long day of like being slaves, and this is how they basically just let everything out and connected as community. And most of the rhythms can be like very upbeat and like celebratory. Some other rhythms are like very sad and just like mellow and like intense, and you can see how you basically just literally let it all out during the dance. I do have a video that I don't know if we're going to be able to show, but I have a sheet with some resources that I wanted to share, and I also put the link in there, so I'm just going to drop that in the chat before we go. I invite you all to see it. It is very wonderful, and not because I'm biased, it really is.
Awesome. Yes, and the whole time you were talking about it too, like both with the graffiti and the bomba, it's cool because it's this language and art visual combination, right? Like the graffiti, especially, like the graffiti is aesthetically pleasing, and there's messaging that's happening that's really, like you're saying, really normalizing for everyone to be able to see. And then the bomba, it ties in the community piece and the visualization of the art and the music. And so I really love that this discussion that we're all having today is talking about the different elements of art and how it can be seen and used in different ways. So yes, definitely share that resource. And then my last question is, Giovanna, do you think that art can be used to convey social inequities in the mental health industry?
Absolutely. Monica, for the record, I'm also from Puerto Rico, and bomba is very close to me. It sends a message even to people that don't understand the language. That's why I'm encouraging you all to watch the video. But I mean, this is what we're doing, right? Sometimes we can't put into words what we're feeling, but we can draw it, we can paint it, we can wear it, we can write it, because art is an expressive outlet. It can cross cultural boundaries, like the bomba that I'm really encouraging you all to see. It crosses language barriers. It isn't bound by time or space. A piece of art here, like Monica mentioned, maybe a wall with graffiti can reach and impact people even on the other side of the world. You're taking a picture carelessly on vacation, you upload it to social media, and then whoever sees it is touched by it, right? That's really beautiful. And speaking of Frida, since we've been talking about Frida, she's a prime example of this. She was bedridden for a very long time after her accident, and she used her art to express her anger, her frustration, her heartbreak, and her discontent with many things that impacted her mental health, including social, gender norms, the politics in Mexico at the time. And so her art still today, as we're seeing, inspires people, right? So 100% yes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you two so much. It was been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I know we've had a lot of side conversations while you two were speaking. So if you have more questions, please type them in. We have both of our speakers for another 8 minutes. So type away. A lot of the comments have been using art as an expressive tool and how it's underutilized. And I think, as both of you were talking about, art, even in the form of dance, music, can be used as a great tool to help express yourself. I saw a movie the other day, just randomly, I think on Stars, called Summertime. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely watch it. It's about a bunch of people who encounter one another in LA for a full day. You'll see them. They do see therapists, so you get to see how their therapist helps them and how they're handling their mental health struggles. And most of the people that you see in the movie are people of color. So really, really good movie. It came out in 2020. So if you haven't seen it, definitely watch it.
What's the movie called, Nadine?
Oh, sorry, Summertime.
And we've got tons of great resources, and I know some of them are in the chat. We will put together a blog post, so don't worry about not getting to all the links just yet. We'll have a blog post. We'll dump everything there, and you'll have tons of access to that. And that'll go up in about a week or so. And we will also have the recording of this video. And I've learned so much. And I love the connection that we've all been able to make, from visual art to literature to music to dance, and really so effortlessly. This wasn't even planned to do it this way, and it just all came together so naturally. And I think art is just an incredible thing. It's changed my life. I know it's changed some of your lives as well. I do want to read a little bit of the conversation in the chat, because it's been very, very good. So we have: using art to express your own ideas and thoughts, even if you just want it to look pretty. If that's helpful to you, that's all you need. Exactly. And also earlier in the chat, we did talk about just having sessions where you can just create in a community that is supportive. And we do hope to do more of that in the coming months, where we're just coming together and we're just making anything, that we feel. John Doe says your platform is helpful. There is a recent documentary film called I Remember Better When I Paint That's awesome. That sums up the findings of a growing body of research into the cognitive effects of making art. Art spread reminded me of how helpful art is for the mind and body. Creativity in all forms is very important and healthy. Thank you for that. That is really very encouraging. That's really what we aim to do here, is to, first of all, raise awareness and bring people together, let you know that you're not alone. And like Giovanna said earlier, when someone is driving by and they see this, they know, okay, I'm not alone. Like, someone else is feeling this. And I think there's a quote from Frida as well that Miriam put in the chat that expresses that as well, that there is someone out there who's feeling bizarre and flows in the same way that you do.
Yeah, these are great points. I've loved this conversation, and I think just to wrap up, so I don't find myself artistic at all, but the way I've been able to improve my mental health is by co-founding this nonprofit and having everyone come together to creatively express themselves and create this community. And I can't thank you guys enough for joining us on a Saturday to do that. Before we end, just some closing remarks. We want you all at our next events because this was fantastic. So we have like a casual paint session that I talked about next month on IG. So if you're not following us, definitely do. It's at the.art.spread.
On Instagram.
Yes. And then we also have our next virtual event September 17th. And if you want to talk in the meantime, email, call, meet us up. We're always happy to meet with the community. And anything else, Roland?
Yeah, I'd love for everyone to show off their templates to us.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe hold it up for a few seconds so we can get a great group photo. Don't be shy. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, so much. This has been so great. Definitely take a picture of your template, tag us. We'd love to show everyone what we created with today. That's fine too. You would definitely welcome to draw independently. We have an artist, Gray Lou, who does a lot of that herself. This is just a guide, so feel free to use the guide or take it a different direction. That's always welcome. We just want, to create together. And again, definitely follow us and make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter so that you can get updates on our next events. And does anyone have any last questions or comments?
I wanted to say something. I tried to drop the PDF with resources in the chat, but it's not letting me. So I will just send it to you via email, and you can add it to your blog post. It has a few online resources to finding therapists. There's also a few Orange County resources, just some warm lines and suicide prevention hotline and things like that. And it also has the Bomba video, but I was able to just drop that independent link on the chat. But I would really want to share some of those resources. So I'll send it to you via email so you can add it to the blog post.
Thank you so much. We would definitely appreciate that. And if anyone else would like to share more insight with us, you can email us at hello@theartspread.org and send us any information you'd like for us to put in our blog post regarding National Minority Mental Health Awareness.
Hey, just a quick thing. I wanted to say something funny, nothing as serious as we've been talking about, which has been wonderful. I found out yesterday that I got a text that there is a Frida musical going to be produced in New York. So maybe we can have a field trip, all of us, when it's done.
Yes. Actually, Miriam, you just reminded me there is an immersive Frida exhibition going on in Phoenix,
LA?
Arizona. It will come to LA, but right now it's in Phoenix, Arizona. So if anyone's out that way, I'm sure it'll come around the country, but I think that'll be really beautiful to see.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in.
Yeah, I love that. I'm down to go to New York anytime. Let's do it.
And then I hope you all have a great weekend, great week. We hope to see you very shortly.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to our speakers too.
Yes.
Very appreciated.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day and hope to see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a
Bye,
great weekend.
everybody.
Take care,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Ciao.